G'day. Welcome to the Boss and the Brewer podcast, episode number 77. I'm actually going to put this up a little bit higher, so audio people won't hear this, but YouTube will have to put up with this for a minute. Give me one sec. Legit studio shit going on here. Whee, that's too close. All right. That's a bit better. Hopefully the sound is okay. This microphone is a piece of shit and it doesn't work. So I'm just using the Mac until I can figure out why that's not working. And hopefully it sounds okay. So tonight's episode, we have Perko joining us, who's filled in a few times, not for a while. I think Hendo hasn't missed an episode for a while, but today was AIBA judging, I think. And next week, I think, is the AIBA Awards. So, oh, you're going to be on video if you're sitting there. Yeah, so Hendo's not going to be here for this week or next week. I asked Perko to fill in this week. And as it happens, there's a fair bit going on, so it's going to be interesting. I'll have to give him this share link. Oh, here he goes. He is here. All right, let's get into it. Hey, mate.
Hello, Dan. How are you going?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, can't complain.
Very good. Thanks for doing this.
No, that's fine. That's fine. Hopefully Hendo's having a good time down in Melbourne.
Well, apparently he is, because someone just put something in the group, which is just like a photo of Hendo when he doesn't know he's being photographed.
Yeah, I saw that, wearing the judge shirt. And someone was like, oh, you're the only one that's wearing this or that would wear this or something like that. So it's quite funny.
That's fair enough.
Yeah.
How's my audio? Is it okay?
Sounds good to me. Is mine all right? I run everything through just like a webcam. So
yeah,
if it's not good, yeah.
It sounds fine. This is making me sound like a robot, and I can't work out why. I assume it's probably this USB to like USB-C connector thing. I don't know.
Okay. It's not coming across like a robot from my end. So
no, well, I unplugged it, so it's just that whatever the MacBook Air is doing is what we're going to get.
Yeah, cool. I've sort of mucked around this room. I mean, is kind of dark, so I've got a tiny extra light here that I can turn off. I don't know if it was helping.
Yeah, I think it's helping a bit.
It's just the problem is I'm in like an office room. It's an old house, and it just doesn't have much extra lighting like your house. That's obviously.
Well, your house looks a lot like my house used to look, because I can tell by the walls with the
the asbestos paneling. Yeah.
Well, mine was masonite. It wasn't asbestos, so yours might be as well.
Maybe you're right. Oh yeah, I haven't looked into it. So
right. You got a beer?
I do indeed. So I've got.
Oh, there we go. Hang on, let me do a little screenshot here.
This is looking a bit hard to see. Might
just
light. This is the.
Just be like very still for like 1 second.
Oh my god!
Don't cover your face, dude.
Hang on.
You know that's okay. All right.
Why is it so bad?
Oh, it's so bright, isn't it? Maybe it's that light.
No,
there we go. That's good.
Okay.
Angle's good.
Yeah, this is the new one from Grifter, which is the Cascadian Dark Ale.
Very good.
So I'll sort of hold myself there for a second, because I know you like to get your screenshots and things like that. So it's a brand new one, so it's only just kind of come out. So
give us a little live initial reaction right now.
Oh, really? No. Oh, yeah, I will. Hang on. Yeah, it's tasty as, and it's got a nice fluffy kind of wobbling head retention. I like what these guys do. It's like really just, they kind of play into that Sydney music scene aesthetic. Beers you can drink by the pint, that basically none of their beers teeter too much above the 6% range. Yeah. Just drinking beers, but they're just really like well made, just kind of no BS, nothing sort of flashy about them, but they run with nice consistency, and each time they release a label, it's just like a nice progression from the previous one with a different kind of like hero color. I really do like what they do, and they're just being kind of that brewery that's never tried to become anything too like sudden, like they haven't tried to jump on any hype train. They've just chipped away at what they do. And when you go into their venue, which I actually hadn't been to until recently, I really like that but I think exclusively they play like low-key Sydney punk bands and artists and indie bands and stuff like that. So they kind of highlight the local music from Marrickville and surround. So it's just a good way of like really showcasing that real hyper-local kind of Marrickville area. So it's cool. I like what
it's a good spot. It's one of the first brewers I went to. They've been there for a long time, haven't they?
They sure have. I couldn't tell you what year they kind of cracked open, but it's definitely been a while. So what are you drinking there, Dan?
I've got the Black Hops.
Oh, cool.
Untamed, which is probably a low fill. I don't know. But I did have one on the podcast last week, which I wasn't really allowed to. So I didn't say it. I just covered it up. But it was so fucking delicious. It's really good. This is like my jam, this kind of beer.
Yeah. So is that like a West Coast IPA? Yeah, cool.
Just resiny and thick and fucking mad aroma.
Yeah, I was getting sent a few Black Hops beers, but they might have had a bit of a staff changeover recently, and for some reason I haven't got as many. I'm not sure what happened.
I don't know.
I think the last one I got was the X-Ray Haze, and that was really tasty. I like that.
Okay, all right. Well, you never know. Maybe I know if people listen to this, you might get picked up on the rotation.
I don't need more booze. I'm good. I probably need less booze. I've still got a pretty full fridge, so it's all good.
Yeah, nice. All right. Well, so why don't we start off with this the elephant in the room here? Big news this week. What's the difference between a tank top, a singlet, and a muscle shirt?
You go for it. I'll let you answer that one.
No, I've given my answer. I need your opinion.
I feel like I should have researched this. So muscle shirt, tank top, and a singlet.
Yeah.
I kind of just picture different things. I haven't been following this debacle. I saw a couple of comments. I thought it was a funny concept. If I think of a muscle shirt, I obviously think of something that's I'm thinking of muscles like creeping out of something like a cutoff or something that's like built or shaped for someone that is like a bodybuilder or something like that.
Right.
Tank top's more just your straight off, like, you've cut the sleeves like raw off an old band t-shirt or something. That's my version. And did you say a singlet's just your classic like bin tang? I don't know. You tell me, Dan.
No, I think we're close to agreement. I think the singlet, it's all got to do with the thickness of well, it's not just the thickness of the strap, is it? Because it's also, if it's a shirt that's been cut, and it's going to go right up to your arm.
Not necessarily, because if you actually, depends if you cut it directly at the sleeves, or if you kind of do the elongated cut.
Oh, you do a longer cut. Okay.
You could do that. That is definitely something you could do. I've seen it in the sort of music world where they do the extended cut or the rip on the side, and you get that really lazy, 1984 sort of Kurt Russell at the gym kind of vibe.
Yeah.
But
do you think that's a tank top?
Well, it's not that I think it's a tank top. You threw three terms at me, and I'm saying,
I'm not saying
maybe I'd probably call it a cutoff, but
okay, so
but
I threw three terms at you, and you've just thrown another one into the mix. I mean, this is not helping.
No, I wasn't expecting this question of all questions. So, have you asked GPT-4 like for some answers on this? See what they reckon. Like, what's the collated internet response?
I might ask because Google Bard now that just came out, it can access the live internet, and I feel like it's so much discussion around this with the podcast that we might be contributing to the answer. Like if they collate all the stuff
Yeah.
that's going on, they might take like Cutoff might enter the mix just randomly right now, just based on your comment. You never know.
Yeah, I starting to feel like I'm being watched or something. Like, yeah, as soon as this gets uploaded, like some of this information might start to seep into the algorithm. So it's a
Exactly.
scary time. Yeah.
On a more serious note, so this is going to be the biggest thing we talk about. So you've really lucked into guest hosting the podcast this week.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean,
Yeah.
it might not be a bad thing because often me and Hendo try to talk about serious shit and we just fail. Like the other week we tried to talk about the Budweiser controversy and we talked about it for like 5 minutes, and at the end of it, we both just said we just need to cut this out because we just sound like absolute idiots. We have no fucking idea.
Well, that's where you just got to be careful about like what you're saying, if you're just blurting it or not, because if the words you're saying inevitably gets to a wider audience and you're just kind of making things up as you go, you're going to potentially either sound like an idiot or you're going to slip something in there that's a passing thought that might end up like a controversial passing thought. So you kind of got to choose your words wisely. And I thought about this whole thing today, and I don't really have too many answers, but I'm just more looking at it from the industry perspective, and also probably looking at it like as someone that works as like a digital designer, lead and creative direction in my role. Like, if I was in a position where I was approving a product like that, how would I approach it? So I'm trying to be diplomatic and like look at it from an overall perspective, not necessarily, just what my immediate thought is, because it's kind of hard for us being, middle-aged white blokes trying to see it from the perspective of the minorities, of the potentially the people that feel unsafe from the product that sort of come from this. So it is an interesting perspective and it is a tough one to talk about. So what do you reckon, Dan?
Well, let me tee it up. So a couple of weeks ago, they announced the GABS beers. Me and Hendo were actually going through them live on the show, and we were just kind of scanning them. And we saw that one. It was called Barely Legal. And both of our initial reactions was like, oh, shit, that's not good.
Yeah.
But I think it blew up yesterday because, well, I mean, it's probably been slowly boiling because I've been following some of these accounts, and they didn't just notice it yesterday. But yesterday they announced the decal for it, and it was based around the Pornhub logo. So there was an article on Crafty Pint. I was interested. I don't think Brews News have written about this, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, I always wonder, because Brews News can be selective as to what they write about. I couldn't tell you that, but I'm kind of interested as well.
Yeah, so, but I suppose the Crafty Pint article said this beer came out. There's a few people who started complaining about it for, in my mind, pretty fucking good reason. And I think there was Clementine Ford put a whole bunch of stuff on her Instagram, and it got a lot more attention, and it's gotten a lot bigger than it was originally. But I think the logo thing obviously set this thing on fire. And I think initially the Black Flag guys kind of put up a bit of a, I wouldn't say apology, but they just said, sorry, we didn't mean to, I didn't mean to offend people. But today, a couple of hours ago, they put up an actual proper apology.
Yeah. It felt like they were initially like, they had a little bit of outrage, and they must have thought, oh, we can salvage this. We just need to rectify the problem with the logo that came after the name. But then by doing that, they've kind of squished part of the problem, but left the overall problem there. So they really just had to crush the whole thing into dirt and just start again, because it almost comes across like they weren't taking it seriously by doing that. They were just kind of making a quick fix, which unfortunately it wasn't enough. It felt like, a half-baked apology in a sense.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess like I spoke to Steve last night, and I hadn't actually seen anything like this, but when I saw it in the group, I had a missed call from him, and I was like, oh, okay, that's obviously what he's calling about.
Yeah.
And I said to him, like, I remember when we went through a similar situation when we put a beer out that was clearly not well received by the industry, for good reason.
Yeah.
Your initial reaction is that, these guys put this out thinking it was a joke, thinking it was not meaning to hurt anyone, thinking it was funny, right? I'm not defending it. I'm just saying that's what they were thinking when they put it out. And then all of a sudden you got everyone coming down on you and attacking you, and it's kind of fight or flight. And you're stuck in that, do we back down and say sorry, even though a good part of you doesn't believe you had bad intentions going into it? Or, do you fight? And I think people need to be, like, what people forget is, like, these are just normal people making beer. They're not like, it's not like a big company with a PR agency and lawyers and where they can sit down and get given like a script to read out. Like, this is normal humans reacting at a time. And sometimes the reactions to these things are imperfect. But I do think this is pretty bad. Like, it's fucking pretty bad.
It's just alarming that it can get to where it did without someone at Black Flag kind of saying, hey, like, this is a crazy, terrible idea. We cannot do this for X reasons, and them, changing it. Like, my immediate thought was, for this to get kind of published, as a real thing, maybe just the culture within Black Flag needs to be slightly tweaked so that they have some people in there that are a bit more savvy and a bit more, like, sensitive to the sorts of, like, reactions they can have to this kind of a marketing decision. Like, they're not a tiny brewery. This isn't, two brewers and one helper. They're a pretty decent outfit with various salespeople, reps, brewers, and like a relatively scaled team and bar staff and whoever else. So you'd kind of think that down the line there would have been a group meeting on this name and this whole concept where it was agreed upon. So I'm not sure what happened. It's good to see.
Yeah, I don't know if that is the case. I mean, I just, obviously you and me are just kind of speculating about what might have happened there. I just know, having been through it myself, yeah, often that doesn't happen. You're fucking just rushing around. You're doing what you think might be funny. You don't think about it too much, and then it blows up in your face, and you're like, holy fuck, I didn't think about any of this shit. I would say that's probably more likely. But I'm interested in the fact that it wasn't picked up by GABS, because I wonder whether as soon as I heard that name, I was like, instantly, I was like, oh, that's really dodgy. And I've spoken to only a few people about it, and especially with the logo, I instantly connected the two. I don't know if that makes me a sick fuck, but I instantly made the connection between the name and that category of porn. It's a category of porn.
Yeah, well, I didn't realize it was a category of porn, but incredibly, like, if you actually Google, because this came to my attention, someone posted on Instagram, and if you Google the term barely legal, the top answer is barely legal means someone who is around 17 years old and is approaching 18. It's a term that is usually used with a sexual connotation because of the US laws that protect children under the age of 18. And now that's kind of an alarming, and the next few sort of reasonings that come up are similar, but then they're even arguably worse, more into that sexual connotation. So it's definitely just like, it's definitely like pushing the boundary as hard as you could. Like, I just don't even understand how that didn't get picked up. I'm struggling a little bit. But you tell me.
Yeah, well, I have empathy for both sides. I think, I have a bit of I feel like, from what I've read from all the people talking about it, not all of them, most of the people talking about it, it seems actually pretty constructive compared to, like, when I went through something similar. It was very, very combative. Like, there was a lot of really bad shit coming our way, really bad shit that I'll never talk about.
I don't know how it's going to end up for Black Flag.
It
There was a
seems
lot
quite
of
constructive though, like at least for the beer industry people, like that Clementine Ford lady said some, I think if people are commenting about the individuals, about them being grubs or like that kind of shit, that's not constructive. That's just going to piss people off. But the people who commented from the beer industry, to me, were basically just saying this is why it's bad. These are the reasons, and why it's not
it's that
okay.
whole. There's been this big movement of like misogyny doesn't belong in beer. End misogyny in beer, etc. And there's been kind of a real group strength about it. Like it feels like this was a nugget and an opportunity to really like sort of put that message out there again and just kind of remind people like, do not do this. And like the weight's coming down on you if you do not do this, like be better, that sort of thing. So, and I don't know, I mean, I agree, like it should be constructive because it should be about, I know we should all know this by now, but like, I guess educating people as to what's appropriate in 2023 and,
Well, I think, and also why it's not like, like some of the, I bet you like some of the comments where, people talking about, there's 18-year-old girls working behind bars, having to serve sleazy old people, that kind of stuff that, the history of the beer industry, the, male dominated. No, most people in the beer industry are guys like you and me. They're fucking 40-year-old white dudes. So like out of all the industries to make a joke about having sex with a teenager, this is not the one.
No, it's absolutely just it's such a miss of the mark. Like,
right, but I think I don't think it's like you say people should know that, but I don't think it's a bad thing that in the criticism that people are putting up about this, they are specifying why it's a bad thing, and I think that is constructive.
Yeah, there's been a lot of really like well-rounded responses to it, including like surveys and graphics that showcase like where women feel unsafe, being festivals being like one of the major places, beer events and festivals, and obviously that being linked to these sorts of names. Like you can imagine the scenario where guys are hanging around Black Flag and a young woman approaches at the, to get a beer, that beer's on tap, how that might make her feel, right?
Yeah.
And we've like, as middle-aged white blokes, we've really got to kind of stop and imagine ourselves in a different skin, imagine the people around us.
I just lost
directly affected by that, being middle-aged blokes. But yeah, it's
you're back now. I got you. You just pause for a bit, but I got you.
Okay. All right.
I don't know if it's your end or my end.
I'm still having a few audio glitches here, but yeah, I can't tell, to be honest.
Can you hear me okay? I can hear you okay.
Oh, hang on. I can hear you. Bit of a delay in the video, but
yeah. Well, I mean,
it's probably why it's safer not to go live every time.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, well, I think those are good points, and I would just urge people to on both sides to have a productive conversation as opposed to just abusing people, because that's not going to help. And I was encouraged by the fact that they did put up that apology today. They're withdrawing the beer. I am legitimately surprised that GABS didn't pick up on this earlier. It seems like their initial response, they were almost kind of not covering for them, but they kind of said, we didn't get any complaints about the name. We didn't think the name was a problem. They thought the name was a reference to the ABV of the beer and the legal drinking age thing. And I was like, far out. Like that surprises me a lot that was their initial reaction.
Yeah. Do you feel like everyone's going to be quick to sort of immediately throw Black Flag under the bus, but do you feel like in many ways GABS are somewhat culpable based on them sort of letting this slide? Like, I mean, how do you feel there? Like, do you feel like they should? It's their responsibility in many ways to have filtered that and sorted that out. I mean,
I think, like you said before, you have to have empathy for people in a different situation. You've got to imagine being Gabs, you've got thousands of beers and beer names coming through. You've probably got one person working on it. You know, you're skimming through them. It's not like you're just spending hours and hours Googling all these terms and making sure everything's appropriate. Like that, they would have a really hard job as well.
yeah.
I don't think I
On
think
this,
they have to review 1,000 beers. You know, Black Flag only had to put out one, so I don't think you can blame Gabs for the beer release.
no. It was
No,
a hypothetical. It was just a question to put out there because I know that I'm just saying, like, you know, I do think I think there's multiple parties that probably needed to be more onto this across the board. And ultimately, as you said, like, these are individuals doing different jobs trying to mitigate this, and it's a difficult thing to do. So I was just going to bring up a couple of other names because, like, when this got posted today on Beer Thread or yesterday, there was, I think, Big Shed, is it Big Shed have one called Only Flans?
Flans. What does flans mean?
What's that?
What does flans mean?
Well, like a fruit flan, you know, like a fruit flan dessert, but
Okay.
instead of play on OnlyFans, which kind of got flagged as it maybe teetering on controversial, just the play of OnlyFans. And the other one was Moffat Beach's You Can't Beat a Root. Did you see that one?
I did not.
Okay.
Did not.
A beetroot beer, obviously. You
Okay.
can't beat a root. So
I don't. I mean, I obviously don't have the best judgment around these things, as my history proves. So
no, I'm not.
I don't know.
Look, I'm just mentioning these just more as part of the broader context of what names haven't quite been questioned.
Well, I don't see those as anywhere near as
No.
well, like,
nor do I. But I just thought I'd bring them up because they did get mentioned on the thread, and I thought that they were important to also flag as just potential contenders somewhere in the middle of you know. Yeah, it's just interesting with names and how they sort of come across. But I definitely think this Black Flag issue, there was too many things stacked on it. And one of the most alarming things about the barely legal beer was just the descriptor in GABS, which said adventurous, it's big, bold, and barely legal. Nice rounded quad IPA, packing a punch. It's bitter, boozy, and something to tell your friends about. I think ending with something to tell your friends about is just a really bad look because it's insinuating, bragging about. Have I lost you?
no. I'm with you. I agree.
Oh,
I
no,
agree. I mean,
do you know what I mean? It's a brag insinuation or something. It's just not. It's not great.
yeah. I mean, I think they did. I think they fucked up, and I think it sounds like they understand they did, and it's as simple as that, really.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is kind of interesting that you know, your initial reaction is to kind of try to convince people that this wasn't the idea. So it must be kind of frustrating for them in a way to be kind of like, you know, this wasn't what we meant. But if that's true, all these things can't be a coincidence. Like, you got that statement in there, you got the Pornhub logo, you got the meaning of the name, which most people understand. The fact that it's a category of, you know, like, they can't all be coincidences. Or
No,
maybe
I don't think
they
so.
can, but most people would think not.
Yeah, I think they're now in some damage control that they've kind of, you know, it's the hole that they dug themselves, and it's probably a good thing that they're feeling the discomfort of what they've done because they probably need to feel that to rectify some of the cultural issues that obviously exist within Black Flag that maybe they need to fix so that in the future they don't think the way that they thought leading up to this branding. Like,
Right.
they need to think differently. They need to be a bit more respectful and a bit more sensitive. That's all.
Yeah, I think that makes sense, and I would sort of urge people to be I mean, it must be very hard for, the beer agents for change and groups like this to see something like this and not just completely fucking flip out because they're just sick of it.
Yeah.
But you hope that people's careers and livelihoods don't get destroyed over it. You hope it just leads to people doing better and it doesn't happen again. Whether that
Well,
is what happens, I don't know, but that's kind of
I think you've got to in order for the culture to improve, you've got to give people like that constructive advice to better themselves and make better changes, better decisions in their lives. You know what I mean? Like, it's like you hear about things like people these days calling TV shows like Friends and Seinfeld completely inappropriate. But when we were younger, they were just arguably hilarious to our ways of thinking, right? But there's all these things now that are getting flagged, and it's I mean, it's one of those things. It's a bit of a it's the times, like we need to be adaptive, and if people are making bad decisions, they need to be called out on it. They need to fix it. They need to like make better decisions in the future. But absolutely tearing them apart and tearing them down to nothing is not really helping them. You know what I mean? Like, you can't tear them completely down. You've got to give them something to work back up to, and then they will be better.
Yeah,
So
I agree with you. I don't know anything about the culture of the place, and I know I'd be reluctant to say it's a cultural thing. I think, only because of my experience with a similar thing. When we put that beer out, it wasn't like a cultural thing. It was just Ali wanted to do it, and we were celebrating her, and we couldn't say this at the time because obviously it completely fucking backfired. But it wasn't like we're a culture of people.
you guys, though, from what I understand,
Maybe a similar situation. It might just be ignorance, and in our part, it was 100% ignorance. Like, I was encapsulated with Ali and the idea of doing the beer, but she had no fucking idea.
You gave her like that dominion. You allowed her to do a beer that celebrates you, that you can name, and she did that, and you allowed her that freedom and space to do that, and then you supported that decision, right?
Yeah, but it was ignorant, really. I mean, if you look at what happened, we should have been able to predict that, and I didn't understand the context of it, where we are in the industry. ABAC, I didn't even know what ABAC was. At the time, for us, looking back at it, it was ignorance. It wasn't we're bad people, and it wasn't in my mind a cultural problem, and it could be the same thing here. That's all I'm saying.
No, look, I think of anyone that can understand both sides, you're probably arguably like the perfect candidate for that, having gone through a sort of vaguely similar situation, coming out the other side of it and having to mitigate the whole drama of it. So, I mean, I'm just a spectator in this. I wouldn't want to be involved.
It was unbelievably gut-wrenchingly stressful, the whole thing. Like, you have no idea. People are coming to the office bawling their eyes out, like, just and people ringing suppliers, telling them to stop supplying us. There was massive deals that fell through that we'd never talked about. Like, it was unbelievable. But I was going to say, one thing that helped me a lot at the time was talking to a lot of people, and especially the people, like, what I did was I went through all the comments on the Facebook and all the breweries that spoke out about it. And I called all the breweries. Just cold called people I didn't know just to talk to them. And the comments, I messaged them and said, do you want to have a chat about it, just to help me understand where you're at? And that helped enormously, just in terms of me understanding why why it was so bad for people and why it was so potentially threatening and harmful to people. Because I had absolutely no idea. And so I think that's not something that ever gets talked about or publicized. And I don't know if they're doing that, but I would say, if this happens, talking to the people who are pissed off might be the best thing you can do. Because the other thing that I found when I did that is every single person I talked to, except for one, was very, very reasonable with me. They were happy But I apologize. They understood that I genuinely fucked up, and I believe that, and they helped me understand what I'd done wrong. So in the end, I look back at it as a you know a situation where you end up learning a lot from it, and I hope this can be the same.
But you showed that you were trying to right a wrong, or you were trying to improve from something that was clearly a mistake, and trying to understand from it so that it didn't happen again, right? And I think that's the main thing. But I do think that people deserve the chance to right that wrong,
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, you're right. We don't know if there was 10 people that decided on the beer and the name and the descriptor, or if one person was given the task, they did it and it was ticked off. We don't know where the decisions have come from. So it's all just hypotheticals, commenting, but to sort of destroy a business on that basis just seems a little like we don't have the knowledge to make those kind of claims. So it's just better to see how it plays out. And I think that they've done right by the message they've posted today. It'll be interesting to see whether the reactions to Black Flag's latest response is adequate in the eyes of people that feel like they've done wrong. You know what I mean? Like it'll be interesting to see whether people accept that apology and give them a shot at doing right from here on in, or if they are absolutely blacklisted, done for. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I couldn't tell you that, because it can be a pretty volatile, sort of brutal sort of society out there. People don't have time for second chances these days. So just who knows? Who knows?
Yeah, I think it takes a long time, but it takes a genuine effort too, because like I know from our experience, a lot changed after we put that beer out. A hell of a lot changed. Even just from down to just being more conscious of, our impact on the community. Before we put that beer out, we didn't even have a process, a checklist to sign a beer off before we put it out. So the first fucking thing we did was I went to the AIBAC site and read about AIBAC, and then I created a checklist of these are all the things to think about before you put a beer out. And if it doesn't check all these things off, then don't put the fucking beer out. And there's a lot of other stuff that changed too, a huge amount of other stuff that changed. And that took a very long time. I don't think there's anything they can do immediately other than apologizing and withdrawing the beer that's going to change people's mind in the short term.
Yeah.
But over the long term, it'll be a test of their character, to see if they can kind of change to the point where people see the brand as a brand that would never do something like that. And that's going to take a long time.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you, Dan. Yeah, I mean, best of luck to them. We'll see how it plays out. I'm glad I'm a spectator. And like, I absolutely support the fact that I think I support the minorities in this one, like as in, I feel like my support's with the people that have felt the weight of the ugliness of that branding and everything like that. But I'm glad I'm a spectator and I'm not getting involved in this one from any deeper level, because it's just it's not a nice situation to be in for anyone, really. Not a nice feeling uncomfortable by it, and not nice being involved in it from a business perspective. So we'll see.
And I would echo exactly what you said. 1,000%. It's very, very, very clearly the wrong thing to do. It's a fucking atrocious beer and label, and that hopefully goes without saying. It's going to be interesting timing with GABS starting tomorrow, and the guys are down there, I think, with the stall. So Melbourne's going to be an interesting place to be in the next couple of days.
I was going to say that was the only thing I was concerned about with their apology, was you will get people thinking, hey, they're just saving face because we're about to go into this, festival season. But anyway, we probably don't need to continue talking too much about this because it could be its own episode. And I imagine that when you catch up with Hendo next week, assuming you do, that he'll probably have something to say about it, especially because I could see he's been judging down at the AIBA awards with various people that probably and a lot of women, strong women in craft beer who probably have really interesting and well-educated, rounded opinions on the topic, which he can bring into the chat. And he's always good in these situations to give advice. So
it will be interesting to see what comes out of that.
Yeah.
All right. So topic number 2, Fortitude recall. I mean, I kind of feel like do we need to cover all these recalls that happen so often? I suppose with this one, it's particularly newsworthy. What's that?
Oh no, I just mean it's probably big Gold Coast news because it's making every major publication and it's kind of everywhere.
Right.
I haven't looked too much into it. From what I understand, it's they've released Pacer, and it's obviously containing more alcohol than intended. And did you get tested or something, or what's the story there, Dan?
Yeah, it seems very similar to the other ones. I just thought it was, I suppose, interesting from the point of view that Fortitude is owned by the same group that bought Ballistic, that kind of catchment group of companies, and the Ballistic had that recall, and then they came in and took that over, and now they've got their own recall with Fortitude. It must be a very fucking stressful time to be in that business.
Yeah, look, gee whiz, it's been funny. I live near Ballistic, and I actually haven't been back since all of the drama went down. It's been a funny time.
You used to go there?
Yeah, I used to go there a fair bit, and I do sort of know a fair few people a couple of people that still work there, but a lot of people that left there. I won't name names, but various people now working for breweries not too far away. Whether they're brewing or they're just working for, and so on and so forth. And so I suppose I get, different information around the parts, but it makes me feel less sort of drawn to going there, if you follow, just based on the treatment and some of the outstanding debts and things like that. I guess it's just a little bit soured, but it is what it is. So it's probably just
what about Hiker? Have you been in there yet?
Hiker?
Yeah,
that's kind of become my local. So
nice. Well,
I really like the guys. I just feel I like what they stand for, and I like that they're sort of. I just feel like you've got a good dynamic between the two blokes, and then they've got their daughters in there and working, and the resident dog, and the beers are just well executed, sort of generally super drinkable styles. They've got a couple of funky, interesting things going on, but I just really like what they're doing. It just reminds me of kind of why I got interested in craft beers in the first place. It's kind of down to your local place that's just doing it well, and it's like that hyper local. Have you been in there yet?
I have not been in there yet. No, I don't get up to Brizzy often enough. I'm so keen to go because Phil's a fucking legend. I've known him for years.
Yeah, of course. If you do manage to get up, just yell out, because it's about a 5-minute drive from me, so I'll definitely just come down and happy to hit a few beers with you. So, and Hendo surely would be as well. He's there a fair bit. So
yeah, nice. Yeah, well, that's what you want. That's kind of like what got us all into the industry, is those kind of local places started by genuine people making a great product. No fuss, no influences, no marketing weirdness, just, good product, good people type thing.
I could kind of bring it back down to earth in that regard. Like, it feels very neighborly,
That was a bit of a pun. Bring it down to earth, isn't it?
Yeah.
Good.
Accidental pun. It was just yeah.
Do you reckon with these whenever there's a story about the beer recalls, because news these days, it's not really news. It's just they just put out whatever will get the most clicks. And every time they put out a story about one of these things, now it's become a real trend to focus on the fact that it's got higher alcohol content. and it becomes like a viral story that everyone
Uh,
comments on and
I
makes
think,
a joke.
yeah, I think you're right. I think there was a thing with that Pacer story. You know that you're going to get hundreds of comments from like blokes going free alcohol. Oh God,
Yes,
who
exactly.
complains about that? And it
Yeah,
becomes a real sort of like, you know, just a silly comment fest. And I mean, unfortunately, like, you know, these news corporations, that's what they think about is like what's going to get reactions. You know, it's like half my feed is just shit like, you know, it'll be like someone from like maths, and it's, you know, like you wouldn't believe what they look like now, you know,
yeah,
and
yeah.
they don't
I
show you
always
the
click on those
photo.
ones though.
They show the no, but it's this thing that they know that people are going to click on it and try to find
100%.
out what that person looks like. And then it's usually the most controversial contestant that's going to get people responding like, "Oh, I hated that person" or whatever. So
Yeah.
it's just garbage news stuff. And anyway,
Yeah, the Gold Coast Bulletin, unfortunately, is quite guilty of this, and it's kind of funny because they put these stories on about some influencer buys a house or something, and inevitably there's just comment after comment after comment, and the comment is always like, "Who's this person? I've never heard of this person. Like this
yeah,
person's a nobody," and it's like every time, and but they must know, like they look at their analytics each month, and they're like, "This one got 1,000 comments,
yeah.
and do another one like that," and that's it.
Oh yeah, yeah. They love those sort of subtle celebrities where some people know and other people get really grumpy that this person's classed as
Yes,
as a status person, and they're like,
right.
"Oh, I've never heard of them." Like, who?
Yeah.
Question mark. You know, it's yeah, yeah. No, no, you're right. You're 100% right. It's really frustrating because that's, I would say, 80% of my sponsored content on Facebook and wherever. Like, it's just garbage news. You know, it's just yeah, bin news. So anyway,
Yeah. All right. So next one, expressions of interest for Brew Lab Gold Coast. So this isn't a huge story, but it's an event that's coming up for like a sensory session on the Gold Coast. So if you're listening, and it's put on by Brennan from Burley Brewing, so you wouldn't get anyone much more qualified to present something like this than Brennan.
yeah,
It's on the 7th of June. So if you're on the Gold Coast, there's 25 spots. Have a look at the show notes, and you can get along to that one.
it
Um,
looked cool. I sort of I only briefly saw that as part of your document, but it sounded cool. Like if I could get down there, I would go. But yeah, it's a bit far for me, but that sounds awesome.
It's always good to learn more about beer. And then the final one before we get into the comments, the AIBAs and GABS are coming up. So do you want to do a prediction? I didn't warn you about this, but I'm just going to say Moffat
What?
Beach, so you can just say Moffat Beach as well. Who's going to win the major trophies at the AIBAs?
Are you saying Moffat Beach?
Yeah, because they win every time, all the time. So yeah.
Um, oh, yeah, right. I'll go Moffat Beach. Beach. No, that I like them. They're so nice.
They're the
So
best. They're the
yeah,
best.
I'll back you on that. Yeah, I don't know. I didn't. Yeah, I'm not even. I'm not too aware of all the breweries who are entering. If I had a list of who was entering and past results, I might be able to like figure out kind of who would be up there this year based on the quality of their beers. But yeah, but I think Moffat do some great beers. I feel like they're definitely underrated for what they do.
Yeah,
You
they're
know,
solid. Do you get excited about the Gabs? You're going to go to Brisbane? That's in June, I
um,
think, but Melbourne's
I,
this weekend.
I'll be I'll go to the night session this year of the Brisbane Gabs.
Yeah,
Last year I went down to Melbourne in a very last minute decision.
right.
I flew down and did one session. But this year there's just a little bit too much going on with other things in life, which means I won't get down there, unfortunately. I'd probably be on a plane now if I was going down this weekend. But I like to do at least a session.
Yeah,
2 sessions can be a little bit much sometimes. It can get a bit crazy, especially when you're just running into people pouring you big beers and things like that. So I'll do the night session as a good way of just going in there at night, giving everything a run. And I think the good thing about the night session is that a lot of the people pouring the beers are knocking off, and a lot of the reps and the brewers and stuff are just kicking back in the night session. So it should be a good time. How about you, Dan? Do you reckon you'll get there?
I think so. I think I'll get to the Brisbane one. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, the
I
Brisbane.
haven't been, I haven't been to a beer event for quite a while. So
Yeah.
I'm pretty keen to get to it. What's your approach when you go to Gabs? How do you go about it?
I really, I'll be really honest, and this has been me the last couple of years. I haven't gone through the list of what beers are there. Couldn't even tell you what stalls, what brewers are there. I really just approach it super blindly,
Mm.
and I just walk around and decide at the time, like I've just opened a mystery door, walked into a beer event I didn't know was happening, and look around for what I feel like. The only one was obviously with when they had when Currumbin Valley did the Perko, I did have
Oh,
to walk
yeah.
and get the Perko first up. But generally speaking, I go in blind.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time I find I'm not as worried about drinking the silly novelty beers as I am just about getting to the stalls, like having a chat with the brewers, the salespeople, the reps, whoever, and just having a bit of a yarn. Quite often, just finding myself drinking like something fresh, like
Mm.
fresh lager or just a good hoppy beer that they've got on that's and not even their GABS beer, just one that
Yeah.
is fresh, just something representative. I'm not too worried about ticking boxes and paddles and any of that kind of stuff. I'm just happy to
Yeah.
just to float, and
Mm.
generally it's just a real social situation. So that'll be me again this year. So
Yeah, that's good. That's the way to do it. I think the first Gabs is like you get the thing out and you tick them all off, and yeah.
yeah,
But your approach is my approach as well. That's a
yeah. I
good
think it's been
approach.
it's been too long, and I just want to drink what I want to drink. If someone comes up to me and says, "Oi, Perko, you got to have the jam donut, super sour," it's fucking phenomenal.
I'll probably do it.
I'm happy to kind of like make a note, and if I
Yeah.
happen to be walking past, I'll grab one. But like a lot of the time, people are like cramming their bodies with some pretty like ridiculously like you know stupid beers, and it's just not for me. I'm quite happy just to drink. Actually, my sort of favorite approach, really, to be honest, especially if you're going up to a stand, like if I go up to somewhere like you White Bay or something, and Dennis is there, and like or you go to Mountain Culture and just like, hey, what's fresh, what's tasting good, what are
Yeah.
you liking the most? Just
Mm.
ask the guys there, like, what are you liking? What do you like to drink? And just drink that. Like you're drinking what they're advocating. You're gonna drink well all night,
Yeah.
So
The other thing sometimes with, and I don't know if this is still the case, but I know we found like back in the day when we did it, like if you've got your own stand and your own tap system, generally you can probably present the beer better than you can out of the containers.
mm,
So
yeah.
I much prefer to go around to like you say, go around, talk to the brewers, talk to the sales reps, have the beer direct from their own stand rather than going to the container and getting some
Yeah.
person that's just like
If
doesn't.
it's something that pours, it's a bit on the carbonated side, or it's a bit flat, or it requires something, you can get a more accurate pour. Maybe the temperature control can be a little bit more like managed, but when in the containers, everything is small and kind of like everything's abrupt and
Yeah,
rushed, and you've
yeah,
got someone who's young and pushy, just barging through, filling cups. So I actually don't really like going to the containers. I'll tend to pop to the containers, A, if I really want something from the container that I'm told to have, or B, it's quietened down toward the end of the night. The container's looking empty, and it's just easy to go in and grab something that, just grab something random, but can't be bothered with the queues.
Nitro is a big one too. If your beer's on
Mm.
nitro and there's a stand, go to the brewery and get it from them direct because it'll be it'll
Yeah.
be it'll be a
Yeah,
lot.
it's a no-brainer. And I feel like with the nitro beer, I usually want a good pour of it because
Yeah.
it just has the time and the reaction to sort of do its magic. So yeah, yeah. But anyway.
All right, we got the 12 questions in the group, but we've also got one that was put in here that we just missed last week. Any thoughts on this two-tab beer can concept? Did you see this?
I did. I had a bit of a look. I was sort of scratching my head at it. And I saw that it was, yeah, I think Dougal asked the question. I don't know. I don't know the science there. But and I don't know. I didn't look at it, but all I thought of in my own head is like, could this be managed by better management from the can, like, opening it slower and pouring it differently and all the rest of it? Like, you tell me, what are you thinking?
No, it seems like a scam to me as well. It's also a lot of effort.
It's also like, it just seems, if you do something out of the norm like that, it just sounds like a real huge extra expense to me. Like,
Oh yeah.
it's I don't know, it's just weird. It's yeah, I was struggling with that one.
I'd like to try it before I form an opinion because we do too much of sitting back and making opinions about shit we know nothing about. So I'll reserve my judgment, but it
I don't
looks.
know. I mean, yeah, I'm thinking back to when Bent Spoke and Colonial were doing the lid rips and things like that, and they've all
Right.
gone away from that now. I don't know. I just, as you say, you'd have to try it first. So without having it, I can't comment really.
Yeah, I was never a fan of those things. I don't know. Were you a fan of those?
No, not really. There was a couple of times when I found them handy. One time I was at a Christmas party, and it was at like on a lawn bowls green, and we were playing lawn bowls, and they had the Colonial rip-off tabs, and that was handy in a sense that they had a can bar, and you could grab a can, rip the lid off, drink it, put it down. I mean, I don't know. I'd prefer it just be poured into a glass though, because as soon as you rip the lid off, you got a dead flat head. Whereas you just pour into a
Yeah.
glass, whereas if you've got a smaller mouthpiece, it's going to stay a bit more carbonated, a bit colder longer. I don't
Yeah,
know.
generate a bit more
I
yeah,
just, I never really got it, but
yeah. I think it was you notice the aroma, like you open it, you notice the aroma, but then you lose a lot of the benefits. Anyway, we don't need to talk about it. In the end, the
yeah,
humble can won in the end.
yeah, I think so. I don't know.
All right, let's get to these questions because
Yeah, let's
I haven't
go.
looked at these, but it looks like we've got a lot in here.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
Jesus, are you good to go, or you need to have a break, or?
I'm okay. No, I'm good. I'm good.
All right. Paul James, question, where does the black flag thing sit with ABAC? They aren't going at it like Fizz, but I'm sure Fair would have a field day with this. Yeah, so but I mean there's only certain things that ABAC regulate. Like they don't regulate things like is this appropriate, they have like specific things that aren't okay. It's things like, appealing to children, appealing to minors,
Mm.
making it sound like alcohol is good for you, associating it with sport, specific things like that. Um, I don't know specifically. You'd have to read the new ABAC code, but I'd be surprised if this kind of thing is the kind of thing they're really dealing with. I think this is more just like a real bad idea, not necessarily like illegal. It's just not illegal, but against the code.
I
Yeah.
Yeah, this is out of my depth. I haven't looked much into ABAC and I haven't really followed. I'm not one of those people that gets really into this as a side hobby. I really don't. You would have had to probably working in beer as you did. I don't know. But I understand that from a perspective of it's probably an ugly look from ABAC's point of view, but they obviously follow rules. So it
Look,
depends
put
what.
it this way: if you put in an ABAC pre submission for this beer and sent this logo in with it, and you ask them, does this comply with the ABAC code? They would have a hard time getting back to you and saying this is totally fine. You're sweet.
Yeah,
Someone there would probably say something.
it begs the question though, like, you know, should all, you know, should all GABS beers or should people consider, hey, before submitting this to GABS with the decal, with this, with that, should we ask ABAC? Because you know, if there is massive violations there, perhaps this isn't suited for an event or a festival. I mean,
it's tricky though, but it's you know, it costs money and it costs time.
yeah.
It's all of that.
Exactly.
And also, it's not like if you seriously with a beer like that, if you could you imagine filling in the form? And I don't want to be an asshole here, but could you imagine filling in a form for ABAC, uploading that logo, and then asking another human being, "Is this appropriate?"
Yeah.
Come on, like you don't need to do that. That's
no. It's just I'm just theorizing with what we've got, but it's a funny concept. But anyway, yeah.
Yeah, and the other thing is that like ABAC is just, you know, if it breaches ABAC, it's you just get a thing saying you're in breach. It's not.
Yeah.
You know, there's worse things to do, and
yeah.
So, yeah, I would say I would add a guess. It probably doesn't cover it, but that doesn't change anything about what happens.
Yeah.
All right, Paul Metcalf, Quizzo : That's an interesting word. With Modus Brewing releasing AI designed beer label, will this see the floodgates open? You can answer that one. What do you reckon? You're in space.
No, like I posted something about this on Beer Thread because I saw it come up and I mentioned it. And firstly, a lot of people basically just said it's, you know, AI designing beer stuff is kind of stupid. You know, from an art perspective, firstly, like it's essentially cutting middlemen and whatnot, but more so at the moment, that like GPT's essentially collating information via Google searches to grab a joint recipe or joint hops or whatever it may be. And then the recipe is becoming, you know, a joint version of its searches. So it's just kind of getting human information, jumbling it up and putting it into a recipe. So at this current time, I think it just sort of seems unnecessary. Like it just seems like a bit of a fad at this point.
Right.
Who knows when AI gets smarter? I don't know.
I think I was the first to do this. Let me see this. Let me see if I can find this. So I put up a post. This is one of the last posts I did at Black Ops. This is in December last year about AI generated beer can labels. So correct me if I wasn't the first person to put this out, but I'll show this to you. I'll put it in the show notes. So when this all started happening, I took one of the beers that we designed with, if you just go in the Zoom chat, I just sent it to you.
Oh yeah, cool.
So actually I'll put it in the thread as well, in the page. Yeah, so I took one of the beers we designed that actually won a GABS Can Design Award, right?
Yeah.
So it was called Galactic Symphony. And because I used to do the briefings to the designers and run the whole process when we did new beers. And I worked with my mate Dave Heavyside on this. He's an awesome designer. We came up with the name, the design, everything. I gave him the brief. And he came back with a can that was fucking awesome, and it made the top 10. I think it finished second in the GABS Design Awards. The beer went amazingly well as well. And I thought, okay, well, with that particular design, it was such an open-ended brief that you'd think AI would do a pretty good job of it. So I put all of that into AI and generated it, and I put the results on there. It was pretty fucking good. I mean, it was 5 minutes work.
Yeah, I mean, what did you use there? Midjourney, yeah, I thought
Midjourney and DALL-E. So I did that. So the best ones I think was the Midjourney one.
Yeah, Midjourney seems to be better at this stuff. Like I've been mucking around a little bit with Adobe Firefly. Basically that's a new one. You know, you need to have the Adobe suite, but Firefly it's still in beta. I use it a bit just to see what I can do, but Midjourney creates more accurate versions of things. And the best about Midjourney is you can almost create like an idea, and then you can create sub ideas. So you might, for example, create a character who's a little robot, and then you can create sub characters of that same robot doing different things. Yeah, I'm finding that same thing hard to do using other platforms, but it's scary to see what could happen. I mean, and I know there's a few there's a few designers starting to get a bit concerned about their jobs or the future of what they do based on this, because
Well,
it's quite clever, isn't it?
yeah. Well, so I guess the question was, will the floodgates open? I think what is more likely is what you're describing. There's not going to be every brewery's doing an AI label, but all the smart designers are using these tools. I mean, you'd have to, unless
Yeah.
you got your head stuck in the sand, you got to at least look at this shit because it's going to change what you do. And the designers aren't going to go away. But you even look at what Canva are doing, like that. They've got some of the AI stuff they're doing in their application now that's just like pretty fucking awesome. So if you're like like one really simple example, if you got a photo of someone in Italy holding a glass of wine or something, you can just click around it, say change this background, remove the background, put them in a different location, change what's in their hand. And not like you could always do this in Photoshop, but you'd have to like use the pen tool or something to be like really detailed about it. Like it was proper work, you know what I mean? And that kind of stuff is getting like instantly automated now. So it's going to change a hell of a lot.
There's crazy features coming even to Firefly where like in Photoshop, for example, you can do a content aware tool where you select a part of content and it will look at what's around it and try to fill in the gaps. But it's quite sort of generic. It looks at what's around it and it like you might have a river and a mountain and it kind of tries to merge the two and it looks quite fake. But AI's now got these tools, like Firefly's got the tool where you might have a square image and you can extend it to a wide image and it will predict based on the contents of the image what should go next to it.
Wow,
And that sort of stuff is scarily interesting because you could have a photo that's old and interesting and you can turn that into a wraparound label or a widescreen image or a background or a whatever it might be. So it's you would be a fool to not be trying to get your head in the AI game when it comes to design, whether it be beer labels, whether it be anything, to be honest. And as a full-time designer myself, I'm trying to get my head into it, but it's its own world. So you're trying to do this adjacently to your job itself. So it's interesting though. It's going to be eye-opening.
100%. All right, Paul Metcalf, comment about the black flag decal, etc. There are much bigger things in the world and local to worry about. And then he's got a shirt. I'm offended by people are always offended. Okay. I don't know. We talked about this enough, didn't we?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Right,
I don't know. I mean, you're always going to get that. I think that's just simply not putting yourselves in the shoes of the people that are feeling uncomfortable by it. I know that you might not, but other people will, and it's as simple as that. It's I think we've talked about enough.
I did say in the thread tonight, like feel free to weigh in on the black flag thing, but just be respectful. So if people put something in here, as long as it's not offensive, I'll read it out.
Yeah, of course.
Question: Green Beacon in the GABS limited edition 8-pack. Oh, because then he doesn't think that's appropriate because they're not a craft brewer anymore.
I think there was a comment there that I think good old Daniel dismissed that by saying, what is it? Yeah,
I've got it here.
I think it got kind of crushed there.
No, but I mean, there are plenty of scenarios where it would fight for indie breweries over multinationals, but I don't think this is a scenario where it really matters all that much. GB still makes some cracking craft beers.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
they've never really been a GABS sort of brewery, though, have they? Like, you don't really associate Green Beacon with GABS.
No, look, ultimately, I think GABS are doing some interestingly questionable moves. There's definitely some like intention to what they're doing. And when they are selecting, let's say, 8 cans for a beer pack, I don't know what they're asking for or how they select them or why they select them. It's certainly not for the beer quality or the style. There must just be they must have just certain relationships with breweries where they choose them.
Well, there's a lot to consider because there's the distribution of those companies and whether or not they are in those channels. You know what I mean? And there's like you're not going to put some tiny little brewery in a box that sits warm in a Dan Murphy's in the middle of New South Wales. That's they're not distributing to these places already, so that's a big risk for them. And also the quality thing. Like if you imagine you're putting one of these 8 packs together, you got beer that gets pulled together, months beforehand, gets distributed around the country, stored warm for the majority of the time. The chance of something going bad is so high. Like you can massively reduce your risk by putting in breweries that are the bigger breweries and not the smaller ones. So there's a lot that goes into those kind of decisions.
And I think I'm not surprised, given where GABS is at, how they make money, what sponsorships they have, what sort of who's paying for what, and what they need, where they need to reach, and what they need to put in those packs to reach to those areas. I think I'm not really that surprised that things like Green Beacon are in there. And there's a few other big names in there, but I was impressed to see a couple of small names in there too. The most recent pack I was sent had like White Bay in there, for example, and I'm a big fan of what they do, and they're not exactly large scale or available everywhere. So that was good to see. I mean, as long as it doesn't become 8 beers that are available everywhere in Australia in every pack, like as long as they do keep a mix of larger, smaller, more well-known, maybe fiercely independent, maybe ownership sort of bubbled, whatever you want to call it. But yeah.
Fair enough. All right, Derek Lacey question: will Better Beer run foul of the new alcohol marketing codes that are tightening any implied health benefit of alcohol, given the name Better Beer could imply that a product is better for you? Oh, I think Better Beer is fine. That's such a general term. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I don't know if I have an opinion on that. It's kind of just like, I think it's just a word.
Yeah.
Could be good beer, better beer, best beer, great beer, whatever. I don't know. I just feel like it's just the implications of any word could be sort of twisted up like that. I think they've been pretty clever with everything they've done.
But they're sending all these people beer in the group, and I don't have any beer. How does this work? Like, are they sending
I haven't got any either. You know what's funny? Like my partner Carla, like that's her beer of choice. She'll be like, "Oh, can we get a case of better beer?" Like, and that's actually the thing I've probably bought more this year than any other beer. Not because I'll get sent a bunch of beer and I'll buy certain things I want, and then like the staples will become grab the better beer. So we'll go and get the better beer because it's flavorful enough whilst being like your low carb, your easy drinking. It packs away nicely. Like it's I have to say it's clever. They've done a good job with it. And no, I haven't got sent any. So if you want to send me some.
Yeah, and also the people in the group who are complaining about how long it takes them to get free beer. Like, is it actually?
How did they all get it? So you haven't got any better beer?
No, I've got nothing. I mean, well, actually, when they brought out the zero alc, they sent me some. And this is not. I'm not having a go at Nick. I do not expect free beer from anyone. Don't worry.
No, neither do I.
If you do get free beer,
joke about it. Yeah. I joke about it because I don't care either. It's just it is a funny topic of conversation.
Yeah.
When people who are just commenting on the posts are getting it, I mean, come on, at least share it with us. Come on, no, it's a pretty one, but
Hendo's in here. Shout out to Leon Perkin for filling in tonight. Much respect. There you go.
I know.
Nice.
Yeah. It's nice of him to take time out of his busy judging day to do that.
Exactly. All right. Question, Liam Perkin. Now that you've joined the podcast, when's the Lexicon half remodel of your place? What color you got
Yes.
behind you there? Is that hogs bristle?
It's not, so we've got like the white on the roof is much brighter. And the
Ceiling white.
what's that?
Ceiling white or white on
Yeah,
white.
but like I don't know what the actual white tone is. I thought it was a natural white, but it could be some sort of a shade. I don't know if it's Lexicon, but I need to figure it out because I do need to do some touch ups. So I
Okay.
need to, yeah. So look, I don't know. I need to work it out. It's actually something I need to go down to Bunnings with a bit of sample and work out what my actual shade is. But I'm not
Well,
minding.
I'm going to stop. I'm going to stop you right there. Okay. Don't get down to Bunnings. You can't do that.
What?
You can't
Where
go
do
to
I go? Like, where do I go?
You got to go to Dulux. You got to go direct to Dulux. Very
Oh,
important.
really? But they've usually got the Dulux rep at Bunnings, and they no. So like, find a Dulux showroom.
Go to a Dulux showroom, and they also have flanos. So you can actually buy Dulux branded flanos. They're pretty sick.
Okay. Have you bought one?
I haven't yet, but me and Hendo have got an ongoing bet going, this over under thing. And
Okay.
if he wins, I'm buying him a Dulux flano.
I bet they're not cheap.
Obviously,
I
if I
bet
win,
they're
he's
like
buying me one.
$80. I'm gonna say 70, $80.
They look pretty good.
Yeah. 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 I'm sure they are. But then I like the idea. It's a Dulux flano. So technically it's like a painting flano. But then you wouldn't want to
No,
paint
they're
it.
too nice. They're
It's
too
too
nice.
nice. It's too nice to paint it. It's what you wear. It's what you put on once you've painted your house perfectly.
Exactly right. Just for like the model photos afterwards. That's what it's for.
So are you still living in the house you've sold?
I
Is
haven't
that
sold it yet. It's for sale.
Oh, it's for sale. Sorry, for
Yeah.
sale.
So you're looking at Lexicon half right now in its full glory.
Yeah. But you did initially go quarter, was it? And then you've changed to half. Was that right? There was a that wasn't that the
always going to be
initial.
half. I think the debate was to do with outside, and so the house is Lexicon,
Okay.
full Lexicon, but then out the
Yeah.
back, it's Lexicon half on the back wall. So
Okay.
look, there was some bad decisions here and there. It's fine. The place looks good, but
Okay, cool.
yeah. All right. David Jackson said, "How do you watch live time and channel?" And then Paul James said, "Generally only recorded for the podcast unless they do a live segment on here. Dan usually puts the pod out later tonight." And then he said, "Now maths is over." And that is true because when maths was on, podcast came out on the following day.
Is that because of you or Hendo?
No, that's me. I as soon as the
No,
podcast finished,
that.
I would rush to watch maths.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Now I feel bad about making the maths digs earlier.
Yeah, no, I didn't say anything, but that's okay.
But that's the clickbait I'm talking about.
Gets me every
that's
time.
why people are clicking these things because it's just too interesting. People can't resist. They're like, oh, what do they look like now? Like, you wouldn't believe the new hairstyle. Oh my God.
Yeah, it's the best. And then you see like one maths contestant in a photo with another one, and then there's all these rumors about whether they're dating. It's like I'm totally into all that shit. It's awesome.
Oh, but that's that's hype. Hype's important. It's
100%. All right. Any further advice you want to give the audience before you head off? I appreciate you doing this. Thank you very much.
No, it's been good. Not necessarily. No, I thought some pretty heavy topics sort of covered, or I should say the black flags, heavy topic mainly just because of the people that, I think just a lot. It's just, I think it lit a fire in the industry on the cusp of GABS, right when everyone's out celebrating, about to enjoy sort of that whole beer festivities season. I think it was just something that lit a fire under the beer community. But I think that in a constructive way, I think whatever comes of it, I hope it's on the constructive tangent upward rather than on the burn down the entire industry. You know what I mean? Like I hope it's a constructive upward sort of thing, but we'll see, won't we? I don't really have any advice. I'm not like, yeah, don't
No,
listen to me.
I think that's well said. Thanks for coming on. I appreciate it. At late notice too, because Hendo told me last week he wouldn't be around. He's like, you should get Perko, and I didn't message you till like yesterday. So sorry about
It
that.
was no, it's fine. Yeah, like I really didn't expect it, and I could have easily not been available. So just got a little lucky. So yeah, so here we are. So I hope I didn't disappoint the 12, because maybe 11 are listening tonight, but you know, hopefully nobody's upset.
No,
So
you did well. All right. Cheers, mate. Love your work. I'll talk to you soon.
yeah, take care.
See you, mate.
See you soon. Okay, bye.